What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the single game showdown slate on Black Friday. That's right. We have the rare Friday NFL game. Has become a tradition here after Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving yesterday. But here today, we have another game and we have another slate and more chances to win some money. So in this video, we will discuss the injuries that impact the slate, some low risk core plays, lineup construction tips, and then some strategies, angles, and tips to help us try to win the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. This is a live Q&A. Yes, the game starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, so not a bunch of time to get a video up early, have you guys consume it, digest it all day. Figured we would do a live stream, and because there's not much time after the fact to get those questions in either through Discord or in the YouTube comments. This will be a very Q&A heavy video. We'll talk about the normal stuff that we talk about, but you guys will drive this video. The questions you have, throw them in the chat. If you think it's a dumb question, it's probably not, because other people probably have that question as well. So go ahead and throw it in the chat. Let's see, we got Choke, Eli, Aiden. Appreciate you guys joining as well. So before we get into it, Choke has a question about building lineups. He says, do you set a rule to force a low-owned player, or just use cumulative, and I think this is probably the first time this word has ever been uttered on the channel, gubernatorial ownership? I assume you meant combinatorial, because we're not talking about election maps here. But yes, long story short, I do set rules to force low-owned players. It just depends on the slate, the number of games, whether it's showdown or not, which positions I'm playing. But yes, I do set specific rules for that. All right, Biz says, should I use the low risk builder for my 8-player league that pays the top 2 scores? Yeah, so Biz is talking about our new lineup builder at Occupy Fantasy. Yeah, I think you probably could, and it depends. If the 8-player league is pretty sharp, and this is DraftKings, by the way. Let's put Saquon at captain. Let's put in Jalen Hurts, and let's build a low risk lineup. Just see what it looks like. We'll talk about low risk here in a section. In a second, excuse me. It depends. If your league is sharp, you probably have to build a little bit more of a small field, a mix between that and low risk. If it's a bunch of casual guys in there, you can just you can use the low risk lineup. That's probably the best way to do it. All right, Justin says, tell me today's the day. Been a few seasons since you've banked. Well, Justin, you're in luck. Today's the day. Artie says, are we playing both quarterbacks? How do you feel about Luther Burden? All right, we'll get to this in a second. And then Ryan says, how do you feel about Burden as a contrarian large field captain play? So I guess we'll talk about that here now. Let's start with the injuries and usage notes. We'll start with the visiting Chicago Bears. Dealing with a bunch of injuries at linebacker. All 3 of their starting linebackers were out last week. They're out once again this week. And now one of their starters' backups, Ruben Hippolyte, shout out Maryland, he started last week. He's also out. So they're down, 4 linebackers? That's kind of crazy. The 2 guys that had like 30 combined tackles actually played pretty well last week. So I'm not sure it's that huge of a downgrade, but I guess to a certain point, you can only start so many guys at linebacker. Now they're recently starting corner Tyreek Stevenson for the Bears. He's out, but great news for Bears fans and their defense. It looks like they're getting both of their studs back. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon. They might be a little limited in their snap counts, but these guys have played very sparingly this year in 2025. 2 stud guys. It's going to be a big boost to that Chicago defensive backfield. On Philadelphia's side, it's the opposite. They're going to be missing their free safety, Andrew Mukuba, who was placed on IR, hurt his ankle last week in that Cowboys game. He is out. Their left tackle, Lane Johnson, remains out. And their punt returner, deep wide receiver play, Xavier Gibson, he is out as well for Philly. So if we're looking at just purely betting this game and playing guys in this game, Chicago's got the injury luck in their favor. They have less guys out. They're getting guys back. They have less pieces out. So if you want to just go ahead and bet Chicago, maybe not play this DFS slate. So speaking of the usage notes, this is a game, Chicago versus Philly, where there's very little value. And it's really tough to build on a slate where there's not much value because the roles are either very well defined, or in Philly's case, they just don't use that many guys. And Luther Burden, who has been brought up a couple times in the chat, will be by far the most popular value on the slate today. It won't even be close. He'll be extremely popular on DraftKings and FanDuel. And because people want to fit in extra studs, he will be 3 to 5% at captain as well. So for those of you in the chat who are just asking, can I play Luther Burden at captain? Yes, but just be careful, because most Luther Burden captain lineups will look exactly the same. As in, they will play Luther Burden at captain, and then they'll jam in 4 of these top guys and play one more mid-range. And if that's the case, if it's small field, you might be able to get away with it. If it's micro field, you definitely can. But if we're talking large field contests or 500 players or more, there's a very good chance this type of lineup is incredibly duped. So just be careful. Just because it's only 3 to 5% in captain does not mean you're safe from duplication efforts. All right, let's see. Brian says, for a 20 max tournament, how many different captains would you play? Which captains on DraftKings are your favorite today, considering the ownership? So a nice little transition here, because we do have 2 underperforming wide receivers on today's slate. Had CD Lamb yesterday. He naturally thanked us very early with that touchdown, over 100 yards receiving. So underperformers off to a hot start here in week 13. Let's see if we can continue it, because the 2 guys we have today as underperformers are Rome Odunze. And remember, Philly is missing a secondary member. So just another little boost to an underperforming tag. And Devontae Smith for the Eagles. He was on the injury report earlier in the week. He's totally fine. He's good to go. He'll play. He is the underperformer. And ownership, not that crazy for either one of these guys. And a captain, especially not, both under 10%. So they are my favorite high-risk captains today. The builder will give you a good amount of them if you're using our lineup builder. And to answer the question about 20 max, because you, and I seemingly I've said this every slate, a lot of you play 20 max, which is fine. It's a great contest to practice your mass multi-entry skills. The thing I've said every video, and I'll say it again here today, is that even though you have 20 lineups and you're on a level playing field with other people in that contest, I have 20 lineups, you have 20 lineups, this guy has 20 lineups, everyone else has 20 lineups. That's great, but you still have to beat thousands and thousands of entries, if not tens of thousands of entries. And as a result, you only have 20 shots to beat tens of thousands of people. So you have to really condense your player pool, and that means playing way less captains, playing way less in the flex. You want to minimize the number of things you need to do to get right. So if you play a core group of guys and that group goes off, then you have a chance of all 20 lineups rising to the top, and then you just need 1 or 2 players from a couple lineups to really push you over that edge. So to answer your question, I think at absolute maximum you play 4 captains, but really you should be playing closer to 2. And I think as long as you're playing well within your bankroll limits, and you should be, then you probably want to just play 1 captain in most of your 20 max every single slate. I think you have a much higher ROI and much higher sweat equity if you play just 1 captain in your 20 max. And yeah, you're going to be dead oftentimes before halftime by doing that strategy, but we're playing 20 max and 150 max in Showdown for the long-term ROI. All right, let's see here. What's up, guys? Welcome. Appreciate everyone joining here on Friday. Again, this is more of a live Q&A session. If you have specific questions, if you guys want to see some low-risk builds, you want to see some high-risk builds, let me know in the chat. But mostly just answering your questions today and just talking through some strategy, because we don't have too much time after this video finishes before the game starts. So just trying to get in as many answers as we can for you guys. Jose says he's deciding between Barkley or Caleb Williams. Who's the better roster building Eagles onslaught? If you're building an Eagles onslaught, you probably don't want Caleb, because if you're playing Caleb, you want at least 1 other pass catcher with him, more than likely. So just you got to think about the rest of your lineup there. All right, Dropping Dime says he ran 150 lineups and got all Eagles 5-4-2 builds. Do you set rules to force different stack constructions, or do you manually adjust player projections to give you different roster constructions? Yeah, good question. And I think that's actually not that bad, because when I was looking earlier, I don't think the field's going to build too many 5-1 lineups, just because of how little Eagles value there is, and because the Bears are underdogs, they're not going to build many 5-1 underdog stacks as it is. So I don't mind that at all. Eagles 4-2 will be pretty popular. And most of the time, if I've set ownership rules or I've eliminated some captains, I'll just let the builder run. I'm not going to naturally, if I'm building small field lineups, I may naturally hand build or set up a way to build some different team constructions. But if I'm building 150, as long as I get my rules and my uniqueness correct, I'll let the builder tell me, or whatever optimizer or simulation tool they're using, just tell me what type of stack constructions I'm creating. Matt, shout out Matt, longtime member in the chat, says Odunze, Devonta, and even Goddard look like nice captain options. Do you have a favorite for the builds you're getting with them? Yeah, let's take a look here. So let's go to the builder, and I know Random Rules, aka Matt, plays on DraftKings, so we'll go to DraftKings here, and let me full screen this for you guys if I can get it up here. Full screen. Does this work? It does work. All right. So let's go to multi-build. I built 300 lineups earlier just with my normal rules. This is for small field, so just keep that in mind. The rules are probably a little more lax today with how bad the values are for large field. when you just actually let me come back to me on screen here. I'm gonna tell you guys something. Make sure I get this right. All right, cool. So the one thing is today, let's talk about the value really quickly. Then I'll get back to Matt's question and we'll roll through the rest of the questions here. You look at the values below Burden and Bears defense. Dotson maybe 1 or 2 targets. Zacchaeus has been relegated to wide receiver 4. Komet has only seen more than 2 targets once since their bye back in week 5. Bigsby, backup running back, may get a few carries. Calcaterra 1 target. Shipley 1 target maybe. Cooper did see 2 targets last week, maybe a target. But like no real wide receiver 3s or running back 2s with a role in here or tight end 2s. Like it's really bad. So when that happens for high risk contests, generally 2 things happen. Either somehow one of these punts scores enough to be optimal. Doesn't happen too often. But the other 2 things that happen is we see really, really uncorrelated lineups near the top of leaderboard. So not pairing quarterbacks with their wide receiver captains, only playing one receiver with a quarterback captain. That is especially true when we have a rushing quarterback like Jalen Hurts. We see defenses against captains. Really weird stuff. So if you're not using any of the punts, you can really be lax on the correlation rules that you would typically use for a showdown slate just because of how tight the value is. The other thing that happens when we have really bad value, in addition to uncorrelated lineups, and this speaks to what Matt was asking about, is oftentimes we see a higher likelihood of mid-range captains being optimal. So despite having studs like Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, Saquon Barkley, we might see DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Devontae Smith, or even down Kyle Monangai, Dallas Goedert, kickers. So those are 2 things to keep in mind. And this is true for all slates that have really bad value, and especially on a slate where the Eagles have a rushing quarterback. It makes both those options even more likely. So to answer Matt's question, let's go back to the builder. And I'll full screen here so you guys can see it. All right, and again, I built 300 lineups. Let's bring the lineups up. And let's just see what... this is funny. With my rules, Matt, the top projected lineup for me using the Occupy model is actually a Goddard captain lineup. So it looks like this. Goddard, Hurts, Barkley, Loveland. And it's got some popular values. Like Loveland will be a popular value. The model really likes Monangai today. Monangai and Swift. It's been a 60-40 split in favor of Swift the last 2 of 3 games, but Swift fumbled early last week and Monangai took that 60% role. I imagine it's back to 60-40 in Swift's favor, but we don't really know that. And on a slate where we're starved for value, I don't mind paying down for Monangai and get a discount from DeAndre Swift just in case they're close or we get some of the variance in the fantasy production. So this is pretty interesting. We have no kickers, no defenses here, but we do have Hurts paired with Goddard. Let's see what another one looks like. This is Goddard with Eagles defense. If you guys can see that, yeah, you can. Let's see what the top Devontae stack looks like, or the top Devontae captain. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's go to table view, and we will sort by captain name. Let's scroll down. Let's make sure, yeah, we are sorted by projected points. Devontae Smith, let's keep scrolling. All right, Devontae Smith, the top 2 lineups for Devontae. Barkley, one with the Eagles defense, Hurts, Goddard. It looks pretty similar. This one has a punt with Smythe, but it's mostly a couple mid-range options, 3 mid-range guys in Eagles, Goddard, and Monangai paired with Smith and 2 studs. So I think that's what the Smith lineups look like. And let's go to the next page here and see what Rome Odunze lineups look like. Again, for those who aren't aware, this is our OccupyFantasy.com lineup builder. It allows you to build up to 300 lineups using our optimal lineup criteria. Made a bunch of upgrades over the past 10 days, and all the new members are really, really loving it. So I encourage you to check it out. One member explicitly said it makes his lineup building a lot easier. So Rome, here's an uncorrelated example for you guys. So captain versus opposing defense with the quarterback in it. This one fades Barkley and Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. So that's interesting. And then the next one actually fades both as well. So to answer your question, Matt, and let's go back to full screen here. There we go. So to answer your question, Matt, it looks like with Goddard, we get 3 mid-range options. Same with Devontae Smith, captains. And then the favored from the model, at least when you build a Rome Odunze, is fading both Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And it kind of makes sense if that's how the game's going to play out. All right, let's keep it going here. So good questions, guys. We've been 15 minutes so far. I'll stick around till 1:30 or so. So let's keep these questions going. Again, if you guys want to see more examples like that, let me know. Let's see. Ray says Davis won him first place in the showdown slate. I assume that's Malik Davis from yesterday. Shout out Malik Davis. Finally scores on a slate that I don't play him. So had that nice long 40-yard touchdown run. So good work there, Ray. Marcus, let's see. Yeah, I think we may see something like the Packers-Lions game where everyone went in on Lions and the Packers end up having 5-1 and 4-2 Bills succeed. Granted, Amon-Ra was hurt. And yeah, that's something we can't predict, right? Even defensive injuries can change the flow of a game because it's really tough to adjust for defenses. But when a stud player like that gets hurt, it really throws everything out the window, especially when they get hurt immediately. So, but yeah, I think just the way Chicago spreads the ball around and the way Philadelphia's offense concentrates, it would not shock me to see 4 Bears, 5 Bears even in the winning lineup today, even as a 7-point underdog. Michael says, who's the guy that could score a touchdown? And we all say, great, now all my lineups are dead. Well, if you don't play Saquon at captain, it's probably him. But I mean, it's probably the values. If you don't play Loveland or Burden and they score, you're probably cooked on today's slate. Really big leverage if it's not one of those two guys in the optimal lineup, but you will be holding your breath in case they do score. Justin says, oh, great question here. Do I think the weather plays into the game script at all? Freezing temps and heavy winds. Yeah, I think the last I checked was the winds down to 10 miles per hour sustained for the game. Some gusts. The cold isn't enough cold to impact play calling and efficiency. Normally we get that at around 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think we're fine there. It might affect it a little bit. If you want to play that angle, I will never discourage anyone from playing a low scoring angle in a showdown slate. How would you do that? You play at least a defense in the lineup. Maybe you play some zero quarterback lineups, running backs at captain. Definitely ways to play that. So again, while the weather may not impact it and it isn't likely to impact it, if the game goes under the total, we know generally that's how you win a lot of money in showdown contests. So Justin, if you want to lean into it, I don't think it's a bad play ever. Brandon says, do I think a certain receiver gets added rate coverage or do they move around? Yeah, I haven't looked at it too closely. I don't really factor it in too much, so I wouldn't worry about that. Jay says, are both defenses in play, or is there one that stands out more than the other? So if I go back to the builder, I'm not sure you can see this on screen. I'll try. If we look at position, defense, and we look at ownership, this is on DraftKings, by the way. We have the Eagles at 27% owned, 9% for the Bears, which I get it, but I don't think the discrepancy should be that wide, especially without Lane Johnson for the Eagles. So I think both are in play because we need some mid-range guys on this lack of value slate. But I think just based on ownership, the Bears are the better play for sure. Matt says, what is the process or logic behind deciding which players are core plays? Yeah, so generally it's guys who either get a lot of volume, consistent volume. They're not priced appropriately, so they're too cheap for their role. They have high ownership. That generally means the field at this point knows what they're doing for the most part. High-owned guys generally are in good spots. Or they rank highly in our occupied model. So some combination of those four characteristics make them a core play. All right, so we got back-to-back Tank Bigsby messages. So shout out to you guys. In fact, I bet Tank Bigsby over 20 rushing yards today earlier, so if that means something, maybe it does. But Bigsby, we've seen him get some touches when Saquon has either been banged up or needs a rest. Let's bring up Tank Bigsby here. 2K, and we don't have him highly owned, I don't believe. Let's go to builders. Let's double check here. This is on DraftKings. Yeah, Tank Bigsby, yeah, we have just 5% owned in the flex, so it won't be that popular at all. I don't mind it, and he's going to need some carry variance, right? We saw him with, 34 yards 2 games ago. We would need something like that. And obviously he had the big game against the Giants when he rushed for 104 yards. That's when Saquon got hurt early. So it's possible. But again, 3 points on a typical slate is not enough for a $2,000 player. On this slate, 3 points could certainly be enough. So I don't mind it at all. And you can play him with Saquon because again, he doesn't have to score that much to be optimal if the studs perform up to expectation. Lindsay says, can you run some high-risk builds? Yeah, I'll go back to the builder here in a second. Let's get through these questions here. Ryan says new builder is great, so thank you. Brian says, which types of builds do Hurts or Williams captains look like in large field on DraftKings? All right, great question. And someone else asked about some more builds. So let's stop there and let's go to the builder. I'll full screen. We'll see what those look like. I'll do both sites so you guys can see, and then we'll continue with the Q&A. So again, thanks everyone for showing up. I know it's Black Friday. Could be doing other things, but we appreciate you joining here as always. All right, let me see if I can full screen this once again. Go to the builder. Let's go full screen. Really professional operation here. All right, so what I'll do here, I already have lineups built, so let's just look at it. Let's go to the card view. And again, these are 300 lineups already built with large field rules in place. And I think the easier way to do this is, let's just do the table view. And then we can edit it, and I can show you guys. So Hurts lineups, the top Hurts lineup by 3 points, which is a pretty decent margin, looks like this. So then this is large field. It's got Hurts with 2 pass catchers. We know generally the field doesn't use Hurts with 2 pass catchers as often as they should. So that's interesting to me. And this has a punt in Durham Smythe, who has seen a couple targets recently. So it's not the craziest play in the world. So this is Hurts, 2 pass catchers, Barkley, and a super punt in Durham Smythe. Let's see what the next one looks like for Jalen Hurts. Okay, so this one doesn't have a punt. It has Cole Kmet. It does have 2 pass catchers, but it fades Saquon Barkley, so that's interesting. Let's see what the next highest projected Hurts lineup looks like with the optimal rules in place. And this one has Eagles defense as its mid-range and uses 2 pass catchers. So they're mostly using 2 pass catchers. And I didn't put in the rule for 2 pass catchers. I put in min 1 pass catcher with Hurts. So it's interesting that the builder's giving me 2 with him. So that'll be a little bit of leverage. The other question was Caleb Williams. So let's, and I don't think I got any builds with Caleb Williams at captain. So let's, we'll do this. Let's go to captain. Caleb Williams, where are you, buddy? There you are. And let's do, let's just lock Caleb Williams at captain, and we'll see what the builder spits out for us. All right, in the meantime, I will answer the rest of these questions while we wait for it to build. Because the builder's so new and fast, we won't be waiting that long. Junie says, revenge game for Swift at 6K. Yeah, certainly possible. Certainly possible. A couple defensive back questions. Cooper will spend more time shadowing Moore or Dunze. That I don't know. And again, it's not something we look into too closely here at Occupy. It's generally not as predictive as most people would imagine. Sean says, do you like Barkley or Hurts at the MVP spot? Hurts will be more popular, and he ranks higher in our model, I believe, on FanDuel. I'll go to FanDuel after these lineups finish building, and we'll double check. Brian says, any interest in Shipley? Yeah, they randomly used him somewhat recently. And he was the backup running back in week 1, and we saw him catch some passes, get some more design looks. Yeah, I don't mind it. It takes a leap of faith that they're going to use him today, but I think again, it's a really gross punt slate. I really don't mind taking shots on someone who's less than 5% owned. All right, so these are the top Caleb Williams lineups. Caleb with Loveland, Monungai, underperforming Rome Odunze. As you can see, the model loves Monungai today. So maybe you should be factoring that into your lineups today. And this one, with Caleb, it fades both Hurts and Saquon. So Caleb 6% owned, fades 2 of the popular stud plays in Saquon and Hurts. So really leveraged lineups with Caleb. Let's see if the next one also has Goddard and Brown. When do we get a Hurts or Barkley lineup? I'm looking. Here we go. What's like the 7th or 8th lineup? Barkley, Brown, Devontae. Interesting with the punt and Durham Smythe. So if you're playing Caleb at captain and you're playing Odunze with him, you probably are. You're probably fading at least one, but probably both Hurts and Barkley. So that is extremely interesting. For the other person who asked about Hurts or Barkley MVP on FanDuel, let's go to the single build. I'll show you really quickly. Jason says 26 miles per hour sustained winds, 35 miles per hour gusts, just reported by Underdog. Yeah, if that's the case, I haven't checked the weather report here in an hour or so. If that's the case, we would certainly be moving our builds more towards lower scoring, min one defense, more salary left on the table, things like that. So yeah, our model has Hurts and Barkley neck and neck in terms of OF index, but Barkley with the lower ownership. So who asked that question? Sean. Yeah, so it just depends what type of contest you're playing in and if you want that ownership discount at MVP, because our model rates them extremely similarly. I wish I had a better answer for you. And also, Barkley is $1,200 cheaper at the MVP, so maybe that's the reason you use to play him. All right, back to me on screen. Hello. All right, let's get to the rest of these questions here. It's 1:25, so we'll stick around 5 or 10 more minutes. Real Alabama Jones says, what's the maximum amount of lineups he can build with premium? Up to 300 lineups with the lineup builder. That was not, I did not pay Alabama to ask that question. It is one of our selling points for the builder, up to 300 lineups. However, in actuality, though, with slate groups, you can build up to 1,500 because it's 300 per group. So really 1,500. Oh, yeah. Ali says, thoughts on kickers today? Yeah, so this was interesting. Let me go back to the builder and I'll show you. So I ran 300 lineups with on FanDuel with the rules. Let me go back to the full screen. And if we look at total exposure, let me slide this over so you can see. So it used Hurts in 69% of my 300 lineups, Brown 67%. But to scroll a little bit, it uses Jake Elliott and Cairo Santos in 108%. So 60% Elliott, 48% Santos, 44% Eagles, 35% Bears. So the builder and the model is saying that on FanDuel, you want to jam in kickers and defenses in high-risk contests. I thought that was extremely interesting. It's funny when we did this on, was it Monday night? And I was telling everyone here on stream that the builder was forcing the defenses and the LA defense was optimal. So, yeah. So really take note of that here on FanDuel today. Let's see what DraftKings did. I think we locked Caleb in the last run, so we'll unlock Caleb and we'll run in. We'll see what kind of exposure we're getting to kickers and defenses. I mean, the Eagles don't kick that much, so that's why it's always tough for Jake Elliott to end up in the optimal lineup. He might have to do a little bit less today because of the lack of value. Santos has been kicking a crazy amount of kicks. The Eagles allow a decent amount of field goal attempts. So let's see here. Captain, unlock Caleb. Let's build 300, and then we'll see what our kicker and defense exposure is now. Biz says, explain the projection column on the builder. Yeah, so I understand if you're not familiar with OccupyFantasy.com, our model, the projections are going to look crazy. These are higher numbers than you're used to for normal projections. This is called our OF index. And essentially, the best way I describe it is a player's likelihood of reaching their ceiling. So it's adjusted for salary in NFL, and it's a ceiling projection based on their price and the likelihood they reach that ceiling. And so you're going to see much higher numbers than typical projections. And how this works, how it's built is we look at over 50 different metrics, and it's all put into a formula. Machine learning spits it out, and it gives us the best plays every week. We don't touch anything by hand, and we end up with pretty different lineups as a result from the industry, which is always a good thing in tournaments. So, yeah, you may say, why is A.J. Brown projected for 51 points? It's not 51 points. That is our OF index. All right, so we have these new lineups built with all the captains, not just Caleb locked. And if we look at the kicker and defense exposure, again, I told you I love Manungai on DraftKings. 65%, that's pretty crazy. Eagles 20%, Bears 14%, Santos 8%. So again, it depends on the site you're playing on. The builder and model love kickers and defenses on FanDuel today because of the pricing. Not as much here. It really prefers Manungai over kickers and defenses. Again, this is not factoring the weather. So if we're going to play this weather angle, we might bump up the defense's projections. But again, it was still like Manungai in that game script as well. So again, really important to note the difference between the sites that you're playing on. All right, let's go back to, here we go, DraftKings. All right, let's get these final questions in here. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Okay, Johnny says low risk 50-50 on FanDuel. Low risk is so bad today. It is a little bit better on FanDuel. I'll show you that here in a second. Javier says, if you're playing a smaller field, 5K or so, that's not small field. That's still large field for us. We say small field is 500 or less, not 5K. What's your main recommendation? Main recommendation is play smaller contests. Second recommendation is follow the rules, either in the builder or in our daily plug, to get in a couple low-owned plays and maximize your correlation to make sure your lineup has the best chance of success. Yeah, again, I'm not going to speak on it until I go fully check the weather update. Marcus asking about the wind updates. Let's see what it says. Let's monitor the total. That'll be your biggest factor. If you go and you look at any odds board and you see that the total has dropped since open more than a point, that should let us know, send off alarm bells that we might want to play for a lower scoring game here. The weather is going to be a factor. So I have not looked at it, so I'm not going to make that recommendation. But if you do and you see that you want to play more defenses, more running back captains, what else? Less quarterbacks, less receivers at captain that are reliant on big plays. Guys who are PPR machines, that's totally fine. All right, let's get out of here with low risk. We'll go back to the builder, and we'll look at what low risk looks like for the slate. Let's go back to FanDuel. And again, the daily plug is up, by the way, as I start to build this daily plug. Bismo wrote it today. His rankings, his slate notes, his lineup construction tips for different contest types, his rules that he's making in written format. So go check that out. That's already up on OccupyFantasy.com. Again, that's included in the membership. If you have the builder, you also have access to the model and the daily plugs. Really good roadmaps for each slate. So we look at the low risk lineup construction tips in the builder for low risk on FanDuel. Both starting quarterbacks and running backs, highest owned at MVP, all flex at least 5% owned, aka don't play any trash plays. And we look and we see Hurts is the highest owned MVP. We'll play him in. We want to play Barkley, favored running back. And if we optimize low risk, we build low risk lineup. This is not great, man. So it plays Monungai. It plays Bird as it should, and it punts the final spot with Jahan Dotson. So I guess it's not the worst thing in the world if you punt at the final spot with Dotson. Punting 2 spots is bad. This leaves out Swift. That's okay. 50-50 timeshare. It plays a really popular value in Burden. I don't mind it. It's not that bad. I guess that is a route you would go where you play 3 of the 4. You play Hurts, Williams, and Barkley. If we played Barkley at MVP, let's want to see what this would look like. See if it changes anything. This gives us the 3 kicker defense build, which is extremely interesting and underperformer. Given what the builder was telling us earlier, I don't mind this as well. So it's really between Hurts and Barkley, who again our model has rated pretty similarly. This is interesting. A defense, 2 kickers. Yeah, it's tough. It's some difficult decisions you have to make in low risk today. All right, guys, let's go back to me full screen. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If you like the live streams, let us know. Most of you like the pre-recorded videos, so you have time to digest it well before the slate starts. You can ask questions in the comments. But if you guys like live streams, let us know too. As we get into December and January, we'll have more and more weird slates with Saturdays and maybe some 2-gamers on Mondays, which means more Jack, as you saw in the Thanksgiving video. A lot of you guys like that. It also means just random videos that we're posting. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel here on YouTube. It's free to do so. You just click the subscribe button below this video. You get notified whenever we post a video or upload anything. Now, we are doing daily videos for NBA too. I understand not everyone plays NBA. Those notifications can be annoying sometimes. But if you like the NFL videos, like literally click the thumbs up button, the like button. You'll get more of those recommendations over the NFL. So just stick through it with us if you don't play NBA DFS and you just want the NFL updates. So, all right, guys, appreciate you watching. As always, as I said on the Thanksgiving video, a lot of different things you guys can watch. We appreciate you taking time to watch us every single week here on YouTube. And we appreciate our members of the community at OccupyFantasy.com. Couldn't do it without you guys. So for Occupy and Brian, thanks everyone for listening. Good luck and enjoy today's afternoon Black Friday Showdown.